And without further ado, please allow me to welcome Steve Thompson and Anthony Ramito from Real Capital Analytics. They're going to talk about the journey through DevOps.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Steve. This is Anthony. As Lynn said, we're from a company called Real Capital Analytics, and we're going to walk you through how and why we decided to try and embrace DevOps and kind of take you on our journey. So Real Capital Analytics, it says there, authority on the deals, players, et cetera, in the commercial real estate sector. Basically, if you think of maybe like a Bloomberg for commercial real estate, you've probably got the right idea. We gather a bunch of data from all sorts of heterogeneous data sources concerning commercial real estate sector, transactional data, financial data, player data, construction data. We kind of brew it all into a big CRE gumbo, and that's what we feed our clients. The company was founded in 2000. It really started off as a one-man operation. We're going to skip ahead a little, but I just want to point out that maybe around 2007, 2008 is when they made the decision to start bringing engineering in-house. Before that, it was all outsourced. So if we jump ahead from there to 2014, this is about where we're at. So still a very small team. We're still fairly small by some standards, but back then, we had a handful of engineers, very under-resourced in terms of QA and in terms of systems. AJ here was our one system guy. He's that little blue guy down there. Our stack was limited to the Microsoft stack, so we're completely a Microsoft shop. ASPnet for a client-facing site. We have and kind of still have some WinForms components, so definitely not bleeding edge at that point. A little bit of tooling. We were using FogBugs as our case tracker. SDLC, not sure what you would call what we're doing. You know, maybe it was water Scrum or, I don't know, Canfall. Nothing really formalized, let's just put it that way. There wasn't a whole lot of process around it. In terms of our environment, our client-facing stuff was hosted on Rackspace, but bare metal on Rackspace. Or other environments, anything pre-prod was actually being managed in-house on bare metal.
Lots of in-house bare metal. We kind of, at that point, started moving into Hyper-V and VMs on bare metal. Still slow motion as far as speed goes.
Yeah, as you can imagine, difficult to scale out. Really can't spin up new environments on demand. A lot of constraints on that. However, we had some fairly ambitious goals. We knew we needed to modernize our legacy apps. Like I said, WinForms, ASPnet, definitely not cutting edge, not bleeding edge. We wanted to basically give our users a better experience. We really wanted to get innovative in terms of design and the way we were managing workflow. We also really wanted to increase velocity. We kind of had this staccato rhythm of development where we have two app domains, really. We have an internal suite of tools that our researchers and our analysts use. And then we have our client-facing suite of tools, which is where our paychecks get cut from. And the way the development cycles would work is usually if we wanted to try a new initiative, one team or the other would have to go first. Like usually it'd be the internal team would have to figure out how to consume a new data set, let's say. And we'd go through several iterations of them getting that ready. And then the content team could take over. We really wanted to get to a point where we could move projects forward in parallel. So increase velocity off the board, across the board, get better at business collaboration. Like the part where we're very waterfall was that whole sense of, business would sit and come up with an idea and kind of throw it over the wall to engineering. Engineering would consume it in a sort of iterative fashion, but then they'd have to throw it back over the wall of the business, yada, yada, yada. really what we wanted to do is become agile. So let's jump ahead to where we are now. So the team has grown. More engineers, still kind of a small team by some standards, but for us, it feels bigger. We grew out our QA. We grew out our systems and our build staff, yeah. We also added PMs, added BAs. Our stack grew. And I think this is something worth coming back to later, because to be able to bring on board and actually get good at new technologies, you need some muscles, you need some maturity. We didn't have that a few years ago. We're getting there now. Cheap plug right there. We definitely went Atlassian across the board for our tooling. Love it. So I know these guys are going to come and talk to you later. Big fans. We embraced Agile. So we're mainly doing Scrum. Occasionally, if the backlog needs to get caught up, we might switch to a Kanban mode for a little bit, a couple iterations. But either way, we consider ourselves an Agile shop now. Switched over to AWS, which you have another slide on later. So the in-house, we still have a couple of in-house components, much smaller than where we're at. Most of our systems are in the cloud. How'd we get there? Well, we knew we needed to improve in a bunch of different areas. We knew we needed to add maturity. Talked about becoming agile. That was definitely a big part of it. We also knew we needed to get better at a bunch of different things. We needed to get better about standardizing our environments. We needed to get better about how we automated our builds and our deploys. We basically needed those best practices. There was no GPS that was going to take us from point A to point B. We needed help. So next, free plug, we reached out to Addteq. Didn't quite reach out to them. Interesting story. We knew we wanted to go to the Atlassian stack. That was kind of where we started. We're agile now, so we wanted to get there. And we also knew we probably needed help getting there. We wanted somebody who can kind of help ramp us up our velocity. So we were looking for a vendor to come in and kind of help us with that. One day, AJ showed up and said, hey, I might have somebody.
So my birthday, 2014, going out to a club and with my fiance, and I met Himanshu. It was, there's photo evidence as well. I'm not sure how it got started, but we started talking about DevOps and random technology stuff, and exchanged contact info, and the next thing you know, that was our prime vendor for the project, and turned into a long-term relationship.
And I just found out maybe 10 minutes ago, there's actually documented evidence of this. It involves funny hats, and clearly a couple of beers were involved. Yep, there's pictures. So we brought Addteq on. They really helped us ramp up velocity right away. They came in, they trained us, Himanshu ran workshops. They helped kind of feed us the best practices, because that's usually the hardest place to start is, well, we know we want to do this. How do we do this? And how do we not make the rookie mistakes? How can we avoid those? Can't avoid them completely, but having a little expert advice, kind of expert hand at the till definitely helped. And they also really kind of built out our infrastructure for us, got us converted over from our old tooling to the new tooling, so that when we were ready to go, we kind of had that infrastructure in place. So some of this pretty obvious, like doing Scrum didn't seem obvious to us, seemed like a big endeavor. Something that we definitely committed to as an organization. We sent everybody, the entire department, to certified Scrum Master training. What we found out was after doing Scrum for, I don't know, maybe a year or so, just still didn't quite feel right to us. I think everybody has that problem, it's that Scrum but. We're doing it, but. We then did another round where we sent a big portion of the team and the business stakeholders. The product owner training, that really helped. I don't know if anybody's struggling with Scrum a little bit. If you are and you haven't taken product owner training, I recommend it. It kind of took it from a different angle, because I think that's where we were stumbling a bit, was stories weren't really kind of being written well. We weren't matching up those business objectives. We weren't kind of clearing the road to get from the business objectives to implementation, and product owner training really helped us with that. So now I feel a few years in, we're actually doing Scrum pretty well. Like I said, we do switch into Kanban mode occasionally, and that is a kind of smooth enough transition for us. Environment. So again, it seems obvious, but where we were in 2014 was, as AJ said, we had these environments kind of all crammed together. Like, we'd have one kind of big server running our dev and our test environments for a couple of different teams. All those VMs crammed onto one chunk of metal. Not easy to, definitely not easy to scale out. Can't really spin up new things on demand. I know AJ has a couple of things he wants to talk about this. I will point out one thing, that pipeline probably looks pretty similar to what a lot of you guys are doing. We have that one that we call integration. That's because we have parallel Scrum teams now. I talked about how we wanted to move things forward in parallel. And if one team has a dependency on the other team, we wanted to have an integration point where you're taking a stable release, a stable build from that other team, something that's definitely passed at least test. Maybe it isn't in production yet, but you want to get it into your pipeline early enough, so we added that integration box. We have definitions of done for all of those. So as you're moving along the pipeline, you kind of know when it's ready to move on to the next step by using that agile concept of definition of done. You want to talk about how the move to AWS really took away some of that friction?
Briefly. So yeah, AWS, if you imagine in your minds what that 2014 slide looked like previously, environments under a CI/CD, system require you to move quickly, and bare metal wasn't going to cut it. So we started using VMs in AWS, and that allowed us to really boost our speed. When a lot of small companies probably have the same issue where you don't have a squad of DevOps engineers or systems engineers. You might have one or two. So in order to keep up with the faster pace of an agile system, you need to use the cloud basically. Or
it's
spend lots of money.
It's a question of scale,
Yeah.
where to get to that true DevOps place, which I'm not sure we're quite there yet, but we're on the road to it, where teams can own the operational side, there can't be a huge process to get in a new environment, right? And it's definitely switching to the cloud helped remove some of that friction. In terms of tooling, we were on FogBugs. We decided we wanted to be agile. FogBugs didn't have a lot to help you out with if you needed Scrum boards and stuff like that. We tried Trello a little as a Scrum board, didn't really work. We were on a tool called ScrumWise for a while, but now we had two different systems, one for tickets, one for stories. So moving to Jira, it's a good move. It gave us that kind of combined thing where we have the issues, the stories, easier to make it transparent across the organization. We've got Scrum boards, we've got Kanban boards, so I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but it seems obvious was sort of a breakthrough for us. Just getting on the right tools really kind of helped smooth things out a little bit. There's great integration with Bitbucket. I think the next slide, might as well just jump to it, where we're switching to Git. That tighter coupling between the actual issues or stories and the commits. Prior to bringing on this tooling, we'd have in our code base, in the comments, you'd have to put in a ticket number, the fog bugs number. It'd have to go inline in the code in the comments so you could remember, oh, this change in the code had to do with this ticket. Now we've got all that without having to clutter up the code. Like the integration between the Git and the actual cases themselves makes it real easy to see, okay, this commit, especially if you're doing feature branching, it's all very organized. Pull request and code review, another sign of maturity. This tooling makes it super easy. So, you can throw out a pull request in Bitbucket. I'll talk a little bit on the next slide how that can be a constraint to moving down the pipeline. You have to have an approval on the pull request, that sort of thing. Next, so yeah, build management. The way it works for us now is, we're doing a bit of Git flow. It's kind of a customized Git flow. It matches that pipeline I showed you before with our environments. But an engineer is going to merge into dev and push that merge commit up to dev. That's going to automate a build. This is automation we didn't have a few years ago. It seems revolutionary to us. I guess we're used to it now, but at the time it was like, oh, this is so cool. And you can put constraints on it. So merging into dev, I don't know if I call it Wild West, but everybody's merging their stuff into dev. That's not necessarily stable, but it's got the latest code that's at least passing the engineer's local unit tests. You want to get it into test. You want to move down the pipeline. Then you need an approved pull request. So it's got to go through code review. Bamboo, it's got all that, makes it super easy. We're loving it. HipChat, in terms of a communication forum, so you get the red or the green. Somebody pushes a build, you can see it. Did it work? Did it not work? Broken builds, obviously a huge priority. Got to get right on that. Deploys. Prior, basically it was what? Deploy by FTP, right? It was not smooth. Doing a lot of live merges into production. Very risky, easy to break, really hard to roll back. Now, Bamboo kind of gives us that out of the box, just takes a little configuration. Again, we had help. We had Himanshu help set it all up for us, get us rolling on it, made our lives much, much easier. We also do blue-green deploys. We use chatbots. Anthony, you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, definitely not trying to steal Addteq's thunder because we're not at that level. But I would consider it a proof of concept right now, but we have the ability to say into a chat room, deploy blue or green, and then messages start popping up as the stages of the deployment are complete, and it's great. It's definitely where we want to be. Right now, it's kind of very, very proof of concept-ish, but it works. But it's not like ready for production. But that's another plug for Addteq. I think down the line, that's who we'll be looking to when we're looking to really operationalize chat ops.
So database CI, I just wanted to spend a minute on this because this was harder. Our data engineers didn't have the same background as our app engineers. So, even things like source control were a little alien to them, So going back to where we were, everybody was working in shared dev environments. There was no source control. Deploys were very tricky and inefficient. I don't know how many of you work with relational databases, but deploying schema changes, you had to take all your alter and your create scripts and kind of package them up to one big master script, and everything had to run in exactly the right order. We wanted rollbacks, but that meant you had to generate the rollback script too, so it was a lot of work. Now you had to figure out how to undo everything you just did. You might not even need it, but you needed to write it. The tooling we use for that is largely Redgate, because we're mostly Microsoft SQL Server. We do use Flyway for Postgres. We really had to drill it. We really had to work hard at it, but we've gotten better. Not fully automated into prod, but fully automated into all the other environments, so that we have a process now, where same as the app engineers. When you merge into dev and push that up, or merge into test and push that up, it gets fired off. Bamboo can run your build, create the actual migration script for you, and fire it off as a deploy. Just degree of difficulty in this was a lot harder for us. It took us a lot more time. We had to put a lot more effort into it. All right, so where are we going next? Docker. That's where we're going next. We really want to get everything containerized. So our big initiative for this year, for what's left of this year, is to try and get as many of our projects containerized as possible. Once again, we're reaching out to Addteq to help us with that, because we want that same thing. We know our velocity is going to be a little poor at the beginning, so we want to ramp up. So we're asking Addteq to come in. They're going to train us, run workshops, do the whole same thing, build up some infrastructure for us, get us up with Rancher. We think Cattle is the orchestrator. Set us up with the registry, all that good stuff. So that's what's next. I mean, we know, since we've kind of moved from a monolithic architecture to a more service-oriented one, we need to get better at logging for sure, monitoring definitely. We think we're going to get some of that out of the box with the containers. We can use Rancher as sort of a centralized monitor for a lot of these things. On the logging, we want to start treating our log data, particularly our click data, as sort of a first-class citizen. We're a data company, and we're used to treating all the commercial real estate data we get, with a lot of reverence, but we haven't been doing the same thing with the internal data we're generating. So that's where we want to go. Self-serve DevOps. Anthony, you got big plans for that, right?
Right, and I think that's really just another way of saying chat ops, but lots of repetitive tasks. Why keep doing them when you can train people to type a message into a chat room and get it done themselves? So that's I would say second on our list after Docker.
Right. Mostly I'm excited about architectural initiatives. I think the one follows the other. We've got great ideas. We're actually just starting a greenfield project. It's just a proof of concept now, but we're going to bring Kinesis in. We want to get into event streaming. I talked about the logging data. We want to stream that data. We want to get into this producer-consumer model. We want to do that across all our data state. We want to get out of this kind of CRUD mode, which is easy to get into with the relational databases, where all our state is stored in this one relational database, but it's hard to branch that out to all the multiple warehouses we want it to end up in. So we want to go into more of a streaming model. The reason I bring that up is because our ability to actually consider doing that comes from the fact that we're not spending all our time wrangling builds, wrangling deploys, trying to keep our code repos in shape. That's become easy for us. Well, maybe not easy, but easier, right? Managing our environments. Getting to that DevOps space where the engineers aren't having to throw everything over the wall at a certain point in the pipeline, where it's like, okay, we've taken this as far as we can. Now it's the ops team's problem. To get to the point where that's a shared responsibility, we're getting there, and it frees us up to really think bigger and to try things. It's the cost to rolling out a proof of concept now. Not sure where it's going to take us, but we want to try it. The cost of doing that is a lot cheaper than it was a few years ago, so we can get business buy-in on doing that. So we're very excited about, we're definitely not done. We're not all the way down the road, but we do feel that we've made enough progress that we're starting to reap some of the benefits of it. So continuous integration, I wouldn't say we're doing continuous deployment yet, but We're definitely somewhere on the continuous integration spectrum. We're getting better at shared responsibilities. Dev and ops is more of a joint effort and not an over-the-wall type thing. And the business is happy with what we've been able to accomplish, and we've got big plans for what we can do from here. There's our contact info. Oh, nope, I guess that was the old version of the deck. If you want our contact info, find us. We'll give you a business card. And that was it. Got time, a couple of minutes for questions, I think. Thank you. Anybody? All right. Oh, sorry. Yes.
I couldn't help but notice that you left out, it sounds like you're going to Docker for microservices architecturing, but it seems pretty obvious that you're avoiding function architecturing. Is there a reason for that?
No, well, first thing I'd say is we're probably more MIDI services, not micro. There's a certain granularity to our services. It's still kind of new to us. So finding the right granularity of a service is really kind of the tough spot. We haven't been good about applying domain-driven design, for example. So figuring out the boundary of our context has been a little bit of a challenge, but we're getting there. So I'd say our services are a little more MIDI than micro. In terms of the functional programming, we're excited about some of the aspects. I know Anthony here is really wants to explore Amazon Lambda, for example, and getting to that point where maybe we could move some of our functionality serverless. Since we're a data company, so much of our stuff deals with state that we've been having trouble finding the right use cases, but obviously deployment is one of them. So we're feeling our way, I guess is how I would put it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
Do you have any system maintained by any vendor who still works on waterfall?
I'm sorry, for waterfall?
Any of your systems are maintained by a vendor who still works on waterfall model? They are still not agile, so they just deliver everything at once, like continuous integration.
I mean, I think the answer is yes, and mostly I think it's our data partners. We feel that this is probably a little snobbish of us, but in dealing with some of our data partners, we feel that they haven't quite caught up to us. We get frustrated with the way they deliver the data and the way they consume feature requests. It's difficult for us to get the data from our external partners curated to just the way we need it. In terms of third-party software, I don't know, do you know, anybody you feel is just very waterfall? Nobody I can think of.
We try to move on, I think, once we hit those types of barriers. So
Yeah, just pick a new vendor, right?
Yeah.
But with our data partners, where we can't just move on to another partner, I do feel like some of them probably don't have the CI maturity that we're trying to get to, and that can definitely be a point of frustration, which is why we put a lot of time into building systems to consume that data. That's where a lot of our effort's going, into trying to come up with really awesome workflow tools for homogenizing data and getting it into our model. Does that answer your question, sort of? It definitely feels out of our hands, yeah. It can be frustrating. Yes.
Just curious, in your journey in getting Scrum and getting trained, did you have an opportunity to, I'm not sure if Addteq did this or some other Scrum trainer did this, but did you have to restructure your teams to support the new SDLC you guys implemented, and did DevOps change that structure again?
I mean, we had a kind of natural division. Like I said, there were two kind of app domains, the internal and the client-facing. So we kind of started with that, 2 Scrum teams. So that, that structure definitely matched the organizational structure. We did end up breaking off a 3rd Scrum team to kind of do more of a greenfield project. And we've kind of stayed in that mode where we kind of still have two main teams, but we switch personnel around depending on which project has the higher priority. And we often find ourselves with kind of a third kind of break-off team that's doing more cutting-edge kind of greenfield stuff. But I don't think it was the Scrum, I don't think that framework forced us to manage the teams. It was more the organizational structure. All right.
Thank you so much, Steve and Anthony. We are going to have a panel discussion at the end. So if anybody has questions, please save it for the end because we'll just start discussing more about that as well. So if we can, please give a round of applause.